Winspiration, the way to the essential. On UK Health Radio, Winspiration brings wisdom and information for an extraordinary future. Together, we can shape the world we want to live in. So let's get real and create the idea. Be extraordinary. Hello to another episode of Winspiration Radio, and again with my friend and wise guy, Steve Harvey. And today we said we want to talk a little bit, why is it so important to know yourself and really to be happy and fulfilled also on the material level if you really understand yourself. And why is this especially important in so-called disruptive times, and when now the modern technology comes, robots and artificial intelligence. Is it really about intelligence now, the natural intelligence, or is it about something more? Welcome again, Steve. Wonderful that you take the time for another, let's say, exchange of thoughts and wisdom. And greetings to you, to Canada.
Hi, Wolfgang. It's nice to be back again.
Yeah. We just had a little warm up already here before we started. And there's so much to say. And like we said, also, we old guys see for sure the world today totally different than when we were 50 years younger, thinking, oh, what can we do or what we need to have? And yeah, why is it really important? Or when you the first time kind of aware or got the information, oh, I should really reflect, yeah, and then think more, who am I? What is my true self?
That's a good question. I think what needs to happen for many people is that some sort of crisis needs to come up in their life that causes them to stop and reflect and go within and find out, what was all that all about.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was going through a divorce. That's when I really started to look at who am I when my so-called fantasy life is shattered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who is this guy? And whereas, when we become so fixated on, I'm married, got a beautiful wife, I've got, beautiful child, whatever, all these other things. But when suddenly, life comes along and throws a curveball, and that from one night to the next, it's gone. Then you're left to really take stock and say, well, what was that all about? And what part did I play in that? So I think it's a lot about responsibility and accountability for our own life versus
but
when we keep looking outside.
The crisis you mentioned, because it's a kind of a heavy interruption of your life or plan, and do you need the interruption? Oops, be a little bit shaken up and say, oh, maybe it's not totally true what I thought before.
Yeah. And I don't know that it has to be a major, interruption, but I think, those times when we do have a crisis, when we can really go within and try and reflect on that, then we can discover that in every crisis there is a blessing. But that's when we start to come from.
That's what there, but yeah, really discovered, oh, I should not look on the outside. I should go in. Or
within.
There is a within. There is a within, even if all our feelings are inside. But to be really aware about not just about the within, that's the only thing what we have. The rest outside is kind of fantasy. Yeah.
And I think we get set up for that, especially in marriage when we talk about should people become one?
Yeah.
Nonsense, right? And so when that's taken away, then you're left with that story, well, somehow I'm broken. I'm only half of the whole.
Yeah.
And it's only by going within and really doing your inner work that you discover that, you know, you are whole, you are oneness. And sometimes we have to repeat that lesson many times before we get it, which I think comes from maturity. You know, that if we knew then what we know now, you know, we think life would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't get it then.
You want to be 20 again? Yes, but only with a phone book from today. Just so. But it's just. I'm not sure. At least I like to go a little bit deeper, because how do we become mature? What happens? I remember it's long time ago, some decades. I read a book from Gail Shee. I only know the German title. It was about trying new ways, and that was about. She made a survey with 2,000 people who seemed to be happy. What does it make that you are happy? And she figured out all those 2,000 people had a kind of major crisis in their life, because it really shifted. It doesn't matter, was it financially, was it relationship, was it sickness, or we know from those who have these near-death experience and everything. It says, and today about brain science, we know that the neocortex, our youngest brain, is just a fantasy you can fill. But if you're not aware, you identify with the fantasy, and then you're in big trouble. And then you can't use the tool; it's using you, and therefore. It gives me also, like we say, we learn more from our mistakes than from our successes. That it's something always needs to shake us, that we, what is there? And if we go through this, maybe then we're mature. Like, we don't start to be mature and then get the idea.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to, you know, they spoke about in the Vedas and the Upanishads and stuff about living in object referral, living self-referral versus object referral. And I think when we're younger, we're so busy living in object referral, as you said at the beginning, about trying to do something, try to have something.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, that starts to shift. So we start asking, who am I being now? You know,
yes,
and getting in touch with the real essence of who we are, you know, and using that, coming from that place as our guiding system, versus, you know, trying to achieve something all the time, trying to get the nice shiny object. And,
yeah, but
you know,
that is a difference when you say now. Then it comes to being, and I was focused to doing or having. Yeah, so get it totally reversed. And my childhood never was as what's going on in your side? Who are you? How can we support you that you can live your full potential? What kind of plant are you, or fruit? I mean, it was such a focus on how to behave, what other people should think about you. Focus outside.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's about trying to fit in. You know, rather than being your true self.
Yeah.
You know? And I think this is where there comes a point where you say, you know, I really don't care what anyone else thinks about me.
Yes.
But I think I've not seen too many young people who come from that place. It's more of a place of ego and arrogance versus really coming from self-referral.
Yes. But where should it come from? You need to. And then we as a humans, anyway, different, like other animal, and horse, after 20 minutes, if is born, it runs around. A lot of other animals can do this. Well, we need so long to really be on our own feet. And in this time, we're so programmable. And anyway, later, if you don't think, like someone said, your brain is always hackable, huh? So really understanding how our brain is working and how we trick ourselves.
Yeah, and we give our power away to other people and make them in charge and responsible for our well-being.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it's really about taking responsibility and being accountable for our own life.
Yeah.
It's easy to point the finger and blame other people. And the way I see it is, if we think that someone else is responsible for your well-being and happiness, then the flip side of that coin is that now you have to be responsible for making other people happy.
Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the one part where says like Ayn Rand always pointed out with these, you need to give the last shirt you have, the last money you have, will always actually be always in welfare thinking. It ends up in the end, you're not okay if you take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. And then you're already in kind of deep shit, because how can you be really happy if you know I'm not allowed to be happy because I need to give my happiness away or whatever I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I think that comes back to being, we confuse being self-centered.
Yes.
With centered in the self.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. And, you know, and every time you fly, unless you fly in private jets, what's the thing they say at the beginning? Take the oxygen first, then give it to those in need.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so if we could just live a life with that, you know, little tagline, to be self-referred versus being centered in the self versus being self-centered, it's a big difference. But as you say, we're being programmed that we have to give everything away to everyone else, and that's a recipe for disaster.
Oh yes, I have a lot of disasters of different people giving me so-called professionals, the medical area or whatever, and then figure out that was not true. And today we know if the computers or internet, you can get diagnosis, and the algorithm gives you better diagnosis than the human beings. Oh, yeah. Do I really want to go to a normal doctor or whatever again? Is he really capable of seeing everything? And so it's really tricky, and also understanding that just, let's say, the last 10, 20 years, science or brain science, neuroscience, what they found out is, in the end, what we believed till the last 10 years is 80-90% is wrong. It was wrong. Yeah. Our brain functions totally different. And why can I believe on the outside if it's just fantasy what I see? Yeah. I see you now here in Zoom.
Yeah.
Also, while we are recording it, also with a video, and it gives me, if I don't think really, I feel I see you, and I get an impression you're a 3D person. Yeah, but there is no person. It's just a screen and pixels.
That's
so
right.
How do I create out of the pixels a picture? Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I understand everything what I see, and don't see it really, it's trained to see.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. And the real truth in this way is only inside.
That's it.
Yeah. And that took me along, because I trained on the outside. I wanted this car, and I wanted this car. Why I wanted this car? Okay, to impress people or have more success with girls or whatever. But what it says, I'm not good enough. No? I need the car. So I'm really depending on the stuff. And I only could get out of, like you said, it's reflection. What is it really? What is the symbol and the wished experience that starts already there? Why do I want this? What is it really for? Yeah. Or like we say, the problem is, and that's all the problem with coming back to the neocortex, if you have whatever fantasy you have, if you identify yourself with it, Yeah, I had a moment I was said, I am a lawyer. And this identification, I am a lawyer, makes my life so narrow and small, and all the other things I can't be. Yeah, if I say I'm Wolfgang at the moment, I'm just working as a lawyer, everything else is available.
Right.
Yeah. And the more we go in this then wrong identification with the ego and the me, or and not understanding what is a real self, like you self-centered or centered in the self.
Yeah.
We do reflections and believe. I reflect about my identification. Then you're still in the trap, and just like I said, okay, you can paint your prison cell a little bit nicer or make it more comfortable, but you're still in the prison. You're not really free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you identify with someone or something, then you have to go about living your life that has to be congruent with that identification.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, when you identify with being a lawyer, it limits, and it also limits, the experiences you're going to have, because there's a lot of people who have got a hang up about lawyers.
Yeah.
So right away then is like, oh, and there's half of the population gone that I can have an interaction with and an experience with. But when you're just being yourself, then you're open to all those possibilities that are out there. And it's like, what happens when all of a sudden you lose that job as a lawyer? Then who do you become?
Yes.
Again, when the crisis comes along and takes that away, when you lose your mansion in Malibu because of a forest fire or whatever, who is it that's left?
Yes.
But if you've identified with all of that, and the moment that is taken from your life, then you're left with this feeling of not being enough.
Yes. But this is a very
so
important. I'm not enough.
Yeah.
If you identified, like you said it in the way, if I get it right, if you're identified with whatever it is, then you need to align everything to this identification. Yeah. And then now in times when life is changing, not only for sure when the house burns down or the material stuff is gone and you're identified with it, and then you have a problem. But if the profession goes away, life is changing. Now, the app is coming, and or the iPhone is coming, and the camera industry or the photo paper industry is gone. So if you, the guy, I am the photo paper guy, you're lost, totally lost with identification. And here is this so important, I believe, that a lot of people at the moment have fear about the future. They're so afraid where is going. They have stress with the uncertainty because they have identification how the world should be. Yeah. And the most suffering comes because you have a fantasy how life should be. The fulfilling of your plan, of your fantasy. And if it goes wrong with the identification, you have totally stress.
Yeah.
If you're not identifying it, you see changes, and then you can see the opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can find a gift in every situation, you see?
Yes.
Whereas when you're attached to things having to be a certain way in order for you to feel good, and when that doesn't happen, then obviously then you choose to feel bad. But when you can find the gift in every situation, again, knowing that you're not the situation, who's having the experience? It comes back to, who am I? Who's having this experience? And again, this is going back to that place of living in a self-referred state. When they say the observer, the observed, and the process of observing become one.
Yes, yeah. And it's also, like I said, what feels good. It's really also, it needs a reflection, who is feeling what. Let's say from the opposite, when I did the first yoga sessions, and said, oh no, that's painful. And then the yoga teacher said, oh, is it your ego pain or you have real pain? And then, oh, there is an ego pain, like the subpersonality says, no, we don't want to do this. I can't do this. And then suddenly you feel, no, it's not really pain for the body. It's just for pain for the image, identification. So I could learn what is really pain. But the pleasure part is the same. When I was identified with my old life, I said, no, we had fun and it was felt good to be in the restaurant and having this. But just the ego had fun. And this fun and deep joy is so different. Yeah, and a lot of people, if they're not really connected or don't feel the true self, they can't feel the true joy.
Okay. Short-lived.
Yeah.
And it's dependent on object referral.
Yes.
You know, it's a setup. It really is. It's a huge setup.
Yes.
Yeah.
And kids can be so happy. You know, I was born after the war in Germany, so we had nothing, not so many toys, but we had fantasy. We played with everything. We could be incredibly happy because everything is in the fantasy, what we have inside.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. And the self realization or self-awareness, if you're aligned with your true self, it's more healthy. Because I say burnout is the betray of yourself. You're out of yourself and then you burn out. If you have your true self, you can always work with all the universal energy. Energy is flowing through you. So you don't have a lack of energy, really.
Right.
So it's so realizing your true essence, your true self, is extremely important for health. It's extremely important for fulfillment, for the real joy we have. And like we said just now, for the security in also, let's call it simply jobs, because something goes, okay, we do something different. I can do this for a living. I can have even a new experience, create new brain cells. This is so important, not only for the health, for the deep joy, know yourself, but also that when times are changing, you're not dependent on a job or an identification. You're flexible like a captain. Okay, the wind is changing, but now I put the sails different.
Yeah. And it's interesting you're talking about the burnout. You know, a lot of people that I've had as clients over the years that were dealing with chronic fatigue syndrome. Nearly every one of them I found was stuck somewhere in their life, and it was stuck in that place of object referral. You know, or when something came along that changed that for them, and they couldn't find the gift in that event.
Yeah,
because they were so attached to things being a certain way. Yeah, until they were able to collapse that story, you know, they were always exhausted.
Yeah, interesting you say this. I just mentioned the book from Geshe, and the book starts with a person who was always sleeping or was not really into life, because if I remember right, it's years ago, but just if you don't have a purpose, if you don't live yourself, you have a problem. Yeah, and they want to sleep. And even in German, we have a saying, we are killing the time. And this is so crazy. Yeah, killing time, because that's the only thing what we really have. Money and health is nice, but it's not that important like the time we have. And how can I be so stupid killing whatever is killing life? But I did it when I was young because I didn't want to do this and I didn't know what to do. But then also when I was, let's say in the normal terms, very successful, I was living in Gibraltar, it was in my penthouse, and from looking from the boy with the background of, kind of poor family. I made something what I never could imagine at my boys' time. So sitting in a penthouse at the marina in Gibraltar, I got into depression. I was falling into depression because I had all the material stuff I believed will make me happy. No, I had it all, and it didn't make me happy.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know, why should I go out of bed? What for? When I had my stress with the law office, I knew I need to have this, and here's a client. Then when I cut it off and had the million in debts, I knew I need to want to pay it back. So it was always goals on the outside. And then suddenly I didn't know why go out of bed. Then when the so-called purpose finding started and really looking for the true essence, what is really the true essence, so-called purpose, the vision in life, where do I want to trade my time for? And therefore, I needed a self-reflection. I needed to go away from all the outside stuff to really, is there any reason why I want to live?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was interesting also. We did seminars. I attended the seminars and everything. Then you find your purpose. And there was so simple exercises there. Oh, the doctor just said, okay, we examined everything, and now, say you have 6 months to live. Also, you should reflect now, I have only 6 months to live, what would I do? And it went down then to 3 months, 1 month, 1 day, and it didn't help me. Because if I have only 1 day to live, what should I think about? It just make, okay, have a nice meal and that's it, or whatever. Oh, then like I wrote it, read it in Stephen Covey's book. There's a funeral and you lay in the coffin and the people around, or family, business partners, mayor, whoever says something about you. What should they say? And I said, I don't care. I'm dead. If they have something good to say, they should have told me before. So nothing really helped me to be happy in this way and find a meaning in life, because I'm not there to live that they have better speeches.
Right.
But then I read, I don't know where, just a sentence in one article or book, what should be there 500 years after you lived? Oh, that was, today we say, okay, what is the legacy? What you really, what should be in the world because you lived? What is there? And that brought me out of the ego. Maybe it can bring you also in the ego. I want to have whatever, the memorials and whatever. No, it's just, if I'm sitting on cloud 27 and looking down 500 years later, what do I want to see? Which says, okay, because I lived, maybe this child is more happy, or this is better, and this is better. And that changed my view in this way from the outside to myself. What can I do? What is really fulfilling? What is really fulfilling? Or it reminds me now what you just last shared with me when you said from the band. I don't know if you want to talk about the name or whatever, but just to say this band started and you want to have the record deal or whatever, and today it's just about giving. It's just about giving. Then you live your true purpose, but therefore you need to know your essence again, who you really are.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting then, because when you look at, the real movers and shakers in the world, I think the people who are coming from that lower vibration of saying, when I have, or if I ever had hundreds of millions of dollars, I would never work another day in my life, and they have a vision of laying on a beach all day long doing nothing. But then when you look at the real movers and shakers, they're not interested in that. They're still interested in, how can I contribute?
Yes.
Which again is, part of the 6 human needs psychology that Tony Robbins talks about. And you see that contribution is the most high vibrational, spiritual of the 6 human needs. And so how can we contribute to something greater than ourselves, which I think is what you're referring to about that legacy? How can you leave something? How can you leave the world a better place for you having been here? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting when you spoke about at funerals, because if you really listen to what people are saying when they're giving their speeches at funerals, it's always a talking about the person, who they were as a being, much more so than what they did for a living.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, you know, we lose sight of that, and we get distracted with all the shiny objects, and go after that instead of really coming from within, and really getting in touch with our true essence, as you say. And you know, it's like the story with the old the father with a pony, and you know, then the pony runs away, then he's distraught, and then it comes back, and it brings a white stallion comes along, and then his son goes and rides a pony, and it falls off and breaks his leg, and then he's distraught. And then, you know, they take him in a hospital to fix his leg, and he's happy. But then the army come, and they say they're taking all the young boys to war, but they can't take him because he's got a broken leg. And his life, it just keeps going like this again and again, that we keep setting ourselves up, that whenever, you know, things are going along tickety-boo, as they say, and I can feel good. And it's like, but what if you can feel good in the middle of, you know, the chaos?
Yes.
In the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a war zone, could you choose to feel good then? Yes. And I think the only way you can do that is becoming self-referred. That you're not the experience. You know?
Yes. And realizing that you're so much more than what you can identify yourself on the material level. Yeah, then we come also who we really, really, really are. If we go to the consciousness, are we really conscious? And then it's so much more that we are just with the material stuff limiting in ourselves. The universe, they say, when 4% maybe is what you can see, 96% you can't see really.
Yeah.
We don't see all the spectrum of lights, the spectrum we hear, everything on the sound. Yeah. How are we so crazy believing what I see is all what there is? Yeah.
Yeah.
That is what I call, it's just like, if I go, I grew up in the kind of Christian world, and the Bible falling out of the paradise is just falling out of the understanding of everything, out of the consciousness of the invisible world. And then you're in just the material world, and there is hard life. If you only see this, like simply no understanding of law of attraction, hard life. But if you stand and believe, you can materialize. You can move mountains just with the energy of the fields. And then you realize my real happiness, my true self, has nothing to do with the material world. I'm not my body. I'm not my thoughts and everything. Not my car and everything or profession. I am something totally different. If I can observe it, it can't be me. If I can observe my thoughts, I can observe my body. Can't be me. And therefore, the more we go this route, we realize, wow, the self, as I says, awareness, to be really aware what is self and what is the me. And then you're always enough. You're always enough.
Yeah, it's really get in touch with what they call the soul consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, your spirit, your essence of who you truly are.
Yes.
But we're so used to living with our five senses out there, you know, and as I say, our five senses are constantly lying to us. Yeah. We look out, we think the world is flat, but we know that it's round. And although there's some people still debating that, and we think we're sitting still right now, but yet we're traveling through space at dizzying speeds, you know. So again, it's like, you know, when we use our five senses for the sense of what is reality, and yet they're constantly lying to us. And as you say, we're only able to process so much light rays and sound. You know, when a dog's whistle, how come the dog hears it, we don't? And what is reality, and who is it that's having this experience? and that, which comes back to that fundamental question of who am I?
Yes.
And it sounds very esoteric at times, but I think it is that
physics
guidance system.
Yeah. Esoteric only, or like wonder is only something what we can't explain yet. So that's why we put it in a whatever strange corner. But it is just physics. Everything is physical in this way, and just our consciousness is at a different level, and we can go with consciousness as a non-duality from there to create, and that is always I see if it's just simply goal setting or from the true self, we should create our life. But most people, statistics says 97%, were working towards something.
Right.
And that is so, if you have it in different levels, it's so hard on the first level. If I identify with whatever I have, profession, culture, and there, if the first time I heard you need to reflect who you really are, and I looked only on this level. I have good qualities, bad qualities. You need to love your shadow, whatever. It was always on the same level. But the real self, to discover the real self, it's more a vertical thing if we do it this way. Consciousness is not just higher consciousness, it's a big field. But this is so much more to discover and get rid of all these false beliefs. Well, let's say, go out of the matrix, then you have a chance to find yourself. Huh?
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that about the goal setting. People they're trying to become something.
Yes.
They're seeing themselves already.
Yes.
That person, and I think that's what so many people have a hard time with that.
Yes.
Is seeing themselves already there. And that's why I think they say you don't attract what you want, you attract what you're in harmony with, what you're in vibrational with.
Yes.
And I always remember you saying years ago about vision boards and how, a lot of people have got it wrong because they have the picture of the beautiful car that they want, but it's taken from the outside versus taking the picture from inside the car looking out, that you're already there. And that really made so much sense to me when I heard you say that. But that's what most people do. They're taking the picture from the outside looking in.
Yes. And the subconscious sees the difference. So the distance or whatever, you manifest the distance so much more. And then there's also the goal collage, what they say. And the vision board is something totally different. If you get really a vision through yourself, then you can make some reminders for yourself and make it more concrete. But it comes from somewhere else. This the big difference. But it's incredible, and we see it in schools or most families. There's not enough knowledge about it, and therefore we're not teaching it. And the society still wants a kind of slaves. You should function for what we want. And that's why it's so interesting. For thousands of years, all the wise people, or the literature says, really get this self-awareness. That's the main thing. And I believe as an entrepreneur also, if you're not doing it, you have a hard time. It's not just burnout. It's also like your ladder of success, where you want to climb, is on the wrong wall. It's not on the wall of your life. So you're working your ass off for something what's not really for you. And what helped me also to get aware of is the top 5 regrets of the dying. And that was really interesting because I could regret everything. But Brownie Ware wrote the book, The Top 5 Regrets. Working 20 years in hospice, and then we had a lot of experience what happens to people at the end. I always was kind of aware that nobody on the deathbed said, I should have been more in the office, or should have made $1 million more. Nobody said that. And it goes more to relationships or whatever. But her ranking is, Number one is I didn't live my true self. And if we understand the neocortex, we create a fantasy and live this fantasy identified with a fantasy and not with our true self. And whoa, shit, what a wasted life.
Yeah. Trying to be something that you're not.
Yes.
And no wonder it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Because you never arrived, so to speak,
Yeah.
And when you do achieve that so-called level of success, wherever, it's empty. There's no fulfillment.
Yes.
And as you know, I've worked with a lot of very, very, what the world would deem successful people that have everything in life. And yet, I've found very few of them are really fulfilled.
Yeah.
They always seem to think there was something missing.
Yes. Yes.
And I think when you live your true self, there's never anything missing.
Yes. And it's also like a lot of people say, if you have enough money, you stop working. No. I'm sure if you have music in your blood, you always will make music. Doesn't matter how much money you have on the bank account. If you have nothing, you will make music. If there's money on the bank account, you still make. Because a lot of artists have a manager who takes care of the money because they don't want to deal with it. They just want to live and express what they feel from the inside out. And that is what I think is also what really a huge star is, because you can have luck, win whatever greatest talent show or whatever, have one song, and that's it. But to be there 10, 20, 30 years, you need to be it. Like it says, that talent takes you to the top, but character keeps you there. And character is easy if it's aligned with your true self.
Yeah, and so many of those artists, when you speak with them, they talk about how they're just in the flow, and that it's the lyrics and the words and the music. It's almost like it's just downloading through them.
Yeah,
but they have the awareness.
Yes, but you mentioned.
And then there's the other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead.
Then there's the others who sit down to try to write a hit song.
Yeah,
with that intention, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah. And just mentioned the word flow. My belief is what I experience and with other people, to really be in this zone of flow, you need to be connected with yourself. You can't, if you're disconnected to yourself, you can't get in the flow. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just when they're in the flow, the thing that you hear a lot of people talking about is time stood still.
Yeah.
They were one with everything in that. And it was like, the tennis ball and the racket and their arm all became one. It was no longer them having to hit the ball. It was oneness.
Yeah.
And it was, and they show that great in the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I think it's called, where they're fighting and one's got the sword and the other one's got a branch of a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And it just became one. The master became one with the the opponent.
Yeah.
There was no defeat.
Yeah, exactly. That is was to be one, or say to be in the flow, or the time stands still, because we know today also from physics again that what we call the three-dimensional rule, and time and space and time continuum, or whatever we live in, it's an illusion. It's just on a special level where it is. And if you go in the flow, you get somehow out of it. And there is no time in this way, because it's a relativity of time anyway. So is there really a presence? Is there really a future? Or it just is? And the true happiness is in the flow. There is,
That's why they call it the precious present, living in the precious present in the moment.
Yeah.
But so many people, again, put their life on hold, or their happiness on hold, or their fulfillment on hold, waiting until I get there in the future.
When the
versus
40 years, yes. Then I start to live. I start to be happy. Or at the weekend, or vacation.
Yeah.
Whatever excuses.
Yeah. Thank God it's Friday and living for the weekend. And
yes.
What if every day could be the weekend,
Yes. And then my experiences also in my life, when I had my hustle there with the law office and everything, I was really looking for the free day on the weekend, but I didn't come to my true self. I was not in the flow. I was just compensating the stress. When I say I lived this week, not in my center on the left side, on the weekend I went to the right side, the other polarity, but still was not centered in myself.
Yeah, right. The pain and the pleasure.
Yes. And the real happiness is if you don't need to compensate. Yeah. Just be the true self.
Yeah. That's from being your true self and loving what is. And finding the gift every moment.
Yes. And loving what is.
Something doesn't go to plan. It's like, great. How can we do something else?
Yeah.
Versus being totally shattered when that doesn't happen, because we're so attached to the outcome.
Yes.
And I think that's one of our biggest problems is attachment.
Yes. But if you're identified with a role or whatever, or your kind of idea of yourself, you're always in trouble. Because you can't be free. And you have only limited possibilities. If you really understand the true self, the consciousness you are, unlimited possibilities. Unlimited possibilities. And you're there for expansion. And then you never have the fear, the fantasy of something in the future might be bad or whatever. You can have really joy and live the true. We are coming to Winspiration Day. At least one day, the 7th of May, make it your day. And okay, this is one day of life in this year. And from the morning to the, I'm happy to be alive. I'm looking for the joy. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot to teach about we're working on, and for listeners, it will maybe take a few weeks or months because we have an extraordinary program, The Essence, to help everybody to really come closer to the essence, who you really are. Like I said, I started it 16, 17 years ago when I was in my depression in Gibraltar, surrounded, sitting in a beautiful penthouse, surrounded in the marina with nice boats and everything, sunshine, but unhappy. It is not the outside what makes you feel bad or good. It's just our perception and judgment. And the moment we get our true self clear and live it, we don't care. It's what other people have, do, live. I'm an apple, so I don't care that the banana looks different. Huh?
Yeah. But they say it's an inside job, but only 100% of the time.
Yes, and it is. And some the wonderful possibility and job to live there. Thanks you again, Steve, for this brainstorming. And
thank you, Wolfgang.
Thoughts. And dear listener, I hope you can pick something out of it and be inspired, change your belief system, because life is beautiful and we can have an extraordinary future if we really understand to live from the inside out. Thank you, Steve. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Wolfgang.
Everybody. Enjoy to be alive. This was another episode of Winspiration Wisdom and Information to support you getting out of illusions, false identifications, limiting beliefs. We all have the power and potential to be more, do more, have more, give more. Reality is what is possible in the universe, and the best is yet to come. If you want to dive deeper into possibilities of creating the extraordinary future, go to winspiration.global or to wolfgangsonnenburg.com. More information and some free downloads like the email program Dream Goals Reality or a copy of the book The Best Is Yet to Come can be found on the UK Health Radio website under the Listen on Demand and Presenters section. Join us again next week on the Winspiration Show for more wisdom and information to create your extraordinary future.